I've been married for 17 years, and I can honestly say to you that it's gotten better with time. Want to know the secret? Stay tuned. So yes, it is true. I have been married for 17 years and it has gotten better with time. Now, let me clarify. When I say better, I don't necessarily mean perfect, and I don't necessarily mean that every day it's just so wonderful and everything just flows the way I want to and my husband never gets on my nerves or I never get on his. That's not what I'm saying, but I can say with all sincerity that after 17 years that I see how our marriage has really grown and it's been really enriched. So what's the secret, you ask? Glad you did. Simply submission. And before you X out of this video, just stay on to hear me out. Submission first to God, because God is the one that created marriage, and I really think it makes sense to go to the creator of a certain thing to really understand how to make that thing work. So as we submit to God, he's able to download in our spirits how to navigate into this mystery called marriage, right? So I think I have just seen just such drastic improvement in our marriage because we're both learning to submit to God, right? So as we submit to God, a lot of our agenda falls to the wayside. As we submit to God, we then have the power over the enemy. We then have the power to resist the enemy out of our marriage and watch him flee. When we submit to God, we have the ability to take on that posture of being a servant. And I have to say that it's amazing to me that there's, power couple seems to be like the buzzword these days. And we often look at these celebrities as, the power couple. And even in the church, we're trying to be like them. We're trying to get as many followers as them. We're trying to get the same reputation of just being this great and awesome couple as they are, but we miss out on the fact that to truly be a power couple according to God's standard, that first starts with submission to him. I can't look to bring glory to myself. I can't run after selfish ambition and then expect to have some type of power. And the question is, what type of power are you looking for in your marriage? Are you looking for the power to just say, oh yeah, we blew up, we got rich? Or are you looking for the power to rebuke the devil and to reject him out of your marriage when infidelity is threatening to come in? Are you looking for that power to stand up and say, no, I'm submitted to God, so I have the power, devil, to rebuke you and tell my flesh to die down? Are you looking for that power when the enemy is coming to just bind you up in your mind and to bring confusion and say to you, oh, you made the wrong decision and you all have just fallen out of love, it's just best that you go your separate way? Do you have that power to tap in and say, no, I have the mind of Christ and I will not be conformed to this world, but I will be transformed by the renewing of my mind. So I'm going to keep my mind focused on Jesus. I'm not going to allow the enemy to download these different thoughts in my mind, right? That's what true power is. But again, to get that power and to make your marriage more enhanced, if you will, you have to first be submitted, both of you, to the Lord. There's just no way around it. For marriage to work, you need God to lead and guide you. I cannot say that statement enough. Marriage is hard. It's real hard. You could have the best spouse in the world, but at the end of the day, you both are flesh and you have the tendency to be bent towards sin. So you need that power of God that comes through submission to him to say, no, 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 we're going to make the decision to walk according to the Spirit and not the flesh, and put your needs before my own. And I am going to need the power of God to say that even though you've hurt me, I'm going to make the decision to forgive you so that we can move on to accomplish the will of God in our lives through our marriage, right? So that takes real power there. Now, I have to say, it's not just about submitting to God, but an outflow or an outpour, whatever the term is, of submitting to God is then having, as a wife, the ability to submit to my husband. I know we don't like to hear this word, but it is absolutely so necessary. This has been the biggest game changer in our marriage, just from the fact that I was willing to more submit to him. Because when I submitted to him, what I was really saying is, I trust your headship. I respect and I honor you. And there's something in that God put in a man that responds to submission of his wife, right? And this is not calling, saying, oh, I'm insubordinate to my husband. Not at all. We miss the entire point. Submission, when it's put in play, is such a beautiful thing. And I have seen the more that I'm willing to submit to my husband, the more he just rises to the task of being my priest, of covering me. Because in my submission, what I'm saying is, I'm stepping back from trying to take a role that's yours, and I'm allowing you to do your job. So when I submit to him, I allow him to do his job of covering me really well. So this can't happen, again, in our own strength. This is something that God, it comes through both of us really submitting to God, right? Because Anika, you pinch me, or you cut me, I'm gonna bleed. I'm still human, right? So I'm not saying that submission is always an easy thing for me, but the more I go on, I recognize that it's for my benefit for me to really submit to my husband. I'm working against myself. I'm working against my marriage when I'm insisting on my way, when I'm insisting on my will. And I have seen God just meet us in such powerful ways these last 17 years as we both move towards submission, both of us submitting to God, and then me submitting to my husband. Now, a word to the husbands out there. I think that submission is becoming easier for me. Not to say all the time, and I just have to keep on saying that, because I don't want to present this like, oh, I'm just so the perfect wife and I just always do it right, because that's just not the truth. I'm learning every single day. But I think that what has made it easier for me as a wife to really submit to my husband is that as I see him run after God, when I see this man get up and seek the face of the Lord, when I see this man lead our family in devotion, when I see this man getting into the word and studying to show himself approved and just having the ability to rightly divide the word of truth, that's attractive to me. And it creates somewhat of a safety. It's such a sense of safety for me, because I'm like, wait a minute, I can really submit to you because you are plugged in to the power source, right? The ultimate power source. And I know that you're not going to lead me in the wrong direction. So it does help me to be even more willing to submit to him. So just a note out there to you husbands. So if you're a wife and you're sitting, you're going, okay, you know what? That's wonderful that your husband is after the heart of the Lord, but mine is not. So that's why I'm not submitted to him. Wrong answer, right? So God calls us to submit to our husbands as unto the Lord. So wives, if you see that your husband is off track, don't you go rebelling against him. That's counterproductive. The best thing that you can do is really pray and ask the Lord to help you to still submit to your husband, and to pray like crazy that this man's heart would be turned towards God, that it would be turned in such a way where he can rise up to be the head that God has called him to be. I think sometimes we look at our husbands and we're like, you know what, they're not where they need to be, so I'm not going to strive to be where I need to be in Christ, which is I'm not going to submit to him. That's foolish thinking. And again, you're working against yourself. You're one. So when you're praying for your husband, that's helping you out. It's not just about, oh, he hurt me, so I'm not going to pray for him and I'm not going to submit to him. No, you're sabotaging yourself in the process because you all are connected, right? Now, obviously, you both are going to have to stand before God as individuals. But for the here and now, while you're here on this earth, it helps you. It's to your benefit to pray that this man will become what he's supposed to be in the Lord. Now, if your husband is telling you to do something crazy and that you know would grieve the Spirit of God, obviously, I'm not saying that you just say, oh yes, I'm just going to follow you blindly. We know that. But I think that there's certain things that we can do where, you know, our husbands are calling us to do, and it's not necessarily against the will of God, but because he's hurt us or because he's not pursuing the will of God, we feel like we can't submit to him. I think that, again, you set yourself up for failure in marriage. So I just have to say, honestly, these last 17 years, I've just seen our marriage just improve, not because we're both so wonderful, but because we've just, again, learned to just submit to God, and then learn how to submit to my husband. And that knowledge came from, again, us submitting to God. Hope that all makes sense. Hope it encourages you. I hope to talk some more on this topic. All right, you be blessed.